So chapter 4 is talking about interactions and medication errors. So an interaction is when the drug causes an influence on another drug, or food has that effect on your drug. So the more drugs we take or are used in a patient, the greater the chances that there's going to be an interaction. Drug-to-drug interactions and drug-to-food interactions can either increase or decrease the intended effect. So I talked about this last week, I think. One could cause induction, which makes the drug go away faster, or one could inhibit an enzyme and make the drug be in the body longer. Could affect absorption. It could change the way a drug's metabolized, that cytochrome P450 enzymatic system. Grapefruit juice in your liver changes the way that drugs will metabolize. So there can be all of that going on. Could be food present in your stomach changes the pH, affects absorption. Sometimes these interactions could be life-threatening or could be relatively minor. So an interaction that can affect a drug. Tetracyclines. Tetracycline likes calcium. Where do we find calcium in our body? Mostly in our bones, right? Calcium floats in our bloodstream. We need it for a proper nerve channel, muscle function, cellular function. There's calcium channels in there. But most of the calcium is going to be stored in our bones. If you take tetracycline with dairy, the tetracycline is going to bind up, or what we call chelate, with that calcium and go where the calcium wants to go. So it goes to the bone. Now, in an adult, all it's really going to do is not make the tetracycline available. So your infection doesn't get treated. But in a child, or in a developing fetus, it could affect the way their bones are going to develop. So as an adult, now your medicine's not working the way it should because it's caught up with something else, like I was talking about those proteins binding, and then the medicine's not available to go do its job. So now my infection's not being treated. Well, now I'm getting sicker instead of better. We can't take calcium. So no dairy with a tetracycline. Some things food will actually enhance the absorption. So those are some food. Grapefruit's a big one. Dairy's another. Don't take with alcohol. Who can give me an example of a drug not to take with alcohol? Narcotics. Anything else? Sleeping aids. Ambien's in that group. What else is in the group with sleeping aids? I just told you a few minutes ago. Benadryl. Right? Who thinks, Benadryl, I buy that over the counter, not a big deal, and my allergies are acting up, I've been out drinking in the French Quarter, and now I'm going to drink that. They're both CNS depressants. So alcohol should never be taken with a CNS depressant, whether it's a benzodiazepine, a narcotic, or any other central nervous system depressant. So that's another potentially life-threatening interaction. So when we hear about people who have an accidental overdose, like Keith Ledger, okay, he took Xanax, he took Restoril, temazepam, so alprazolam and temazepam, which are in the same family, which even if he took an overdose of those two together, he would have gotten sick but would not have died. But he also drank a bottle of red wine. Equals death. Marilyn Monroe took an overdose of barbiturates, which could have killed on her own, but also alcohol. Definite. Game over. So, what are we mixing? How does that mix affect the patient and the body function? Some drugs will enhance the desired effect. That's when we use like a partial agonist sometimes. If we want to give a boost so that we can give less. A perfect example of an interaction that's a positive one is a mixed narcotic. in acetaminophen. Both are used for pain, treat pain differently. But by adding the acetaminophen, hopefully we can reduce the amount of oxycodone that we need to give. So hopefully then there's less side effects. So sometimes it's an enhancement, a beneficial when we mix these drugs, and other times not so much. Another one, Parkinson's drug, carbidopa-levodopa. It's called Sinemet. It's the most common, popular, prescribed Parkinson's medication. Levodopa is really the worker drug, but it gets metabolized out in the body. But carbidopa helps the levodopa work better. So we take them together. So it's an enhancer. So drug-drug interactions when 2 or more drugs are administered at the same time. Bacteriostatic and bactericidal anti-infectives. Azole antifungals or fluoroquinolones. Penicillins and oral contraceptives. So all of these anti-infective type drugs will cause a decrease in effectiveness of an oral contraceptive. They metabolize the estrogen quicker. They cause an induction, which metabolizes the estrogen. Now, if estrogen levels are decreased without alternative forms of birth control, 9 months later, surprise! Interactions that increase drug effects, probenecid and penicillin, which can cause some complications with a probenecid, that's a gout medication. Alcohol and H2 receptor antagonists, specifically cimetidine. So cimetidine was the first in that group, and it has the most interactions. It'll have different interactions than ranitidine. So the newer versions of medicines often will have fixed some of those interactions and side effects. We'll talk about these more specific in their content in the chapters. So I've already talked about dairy with tetracycline, atorvastatin, your HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors, your anti-cholesterol meds. That mix with grapefruit juice in your liver, not a good mix, can cause rhabdomyolysis. Iron with levothyroxine, iron salt, and your thyroid is salt, and there's complications in blocking, and then add in antacids that have calcium or magnesium and things like that. Those will also interact with a lot of different medications. Now, it doesn't mean the patients can't take these medicines in the same day or these food products in the same day. There needs to be a time span for that drug to actually get absorbed in the body before they drink the grapefruit juice or the dairy, have some cheese, or, they have to be separated from each other.
Is it any citrus or just mainly?
It's primarily grapefruit juice.
What does it do?
So grapefruit juice causes a specific type of enzyme metabolism in the body. And back in as early as the 70s, there used to be what was called the grapefruit diet. It actually speeds up metabolism. It's some chemical. I really don't know what it is. You could probably look it up on Google. And what it does is it changes the liver. So liver controls our body's metabolism. The liver and our thyroid. So it's this specific chemical that changes the way the liver metabolizes. Well, that drug is being metabolized in the liver, so it's going to impact that as well. So that's where we have all those complications with like that cytochrome P450 in the somatic system or any of the others. If you have a drug that's going to change the way the liver is functioning, it will affect potentially other medications. Now, some will say stay away from orange juice or lemonade or whatever because, but generally it's identified as a grapefruit interaction. Good question. Others? All right, now when we talk about taking medications together, they're either going to boost each other, they're going to just work together, or they're going to block each other. So if it's additive, it's basically 1 + 1. So they're both, the end result is higher than either drug by itself. So that's an additive effect. So in this case, a sleeping aid, triazolam, which is Restoril, and alcohol. It's going to cause increased sedation. A synergistic effect is where one actually boosts the other. So 1 plus 1 equals 3. So you get a boost. And the example here is a negative one, where aspirin and warfarin taken together increases bleeding exponentially. It's not just double, it's actually bigger than double. One is stopping the clotting from occurring, the platelets from sticking together, and the other is stopping the coagulation by blocking chemicals that cause the coagulation. So now we're affecting blood clots 2 different ways. So because of that, increased risk of bleeding and bruising. Potentiation is when something helps a drug do better but doesn't have any impact on its own. So some of your antifungals, when taken with fatty food, actually get absorbed better. So this is a 1 plus 0. The food has no medicinal impact. Boosts up the level of the drug. And antagonism is when one drug blocks the other. So 1 plus 1 equals 0. So Narcan, naloxone. Somebody's got an opiate on board, they take naloxone, it blocks it, you don't get the effect of the narcotic. We also have bromazicon, flumazenil, which is a benzodiazepine antagonist. So if somebody's got too much Valium or Xanax that they've taken, and we need to reverse that effect, we can use a benzodiazepine antagonist to block it. I think that's a good place to stop. We will finish this out on Monday.